Welcome to the open mic portion of Read by the Sea, in part put on by Pictou County writers, new and experienced. We're going to kick off today's events with...
My name's Janet Kiddo, and I should have had all of this ready. And I'm going to read a few scenes from a story that I've called The Journey. This is, I have a series in my mind, books that are all about family life. And this is actually a story about a 20-year journey for the characters, Maggie and Lenny. And these are just a few scenes, but the whole story is about the secret that one keeps for the other. And it's called The Journey. "It'll be a rough crossing. They might cancel the sailing," said Lenny. "Meet me at the terminal," I said. "I'm leaving in 5 minutes. You can't stop me." "You shouldn't be traveling. Stay home, Maggie." There was a kick, and then the baby stopped moving. Lenny was stalling. "We couldn't put this off any longer. I'll see you at 6:30. I returned the phone to its cradle and then grabbed my keys. Outside, the rain was just starting. I had one coat that still fit around my middle. I couldn't fasten the buttons, but I wrapped it around me and held the two sides closed with one hand. It would be dark by the time I got to the ferry. The sailing to Circle Island was just over 1 hour. The boat was never full, not at this time of year. I had to keep my windshield wipers going while I waited for vehicle loading to start. I opened the cooler bag beside me and looked at the juice and sandwich inside. "You've killed my appetite," I said, rubbing my belly. It was uncomfortable sitting behind the wheel. I zipped the cooler bag back up and sighed. The first thing I wanted to do when I got out of the car was go to the washroom. The cars in front of me started their engines and began driving onto the car deck. I followed and was directed to park near the center stairwell. "You should go ahead of me. I'm pretty slow on the stairs." The young man that got out of the car behind me nodded his head and took the stairs 2 at a time. He was out of sight before I could lift my foot onto the first step. The wind blew my coat open behind me as I held on with both hands to the railing. When I opened the door at the top of the stairs and stepped into the lounge area, I felt the baby move again. My lower back was aching. It was hard to walk in a straight line. The sea was choppy and the ferry was rocking from side to side. Finally, I reached the washroom and pushed the door open with my shoulder. I had to steady myself to get into the small compartment. I could not get stuck. Lenny would never let me forget it if I did. I thought it was seasickness as I worked my way back to the bench seat in the lounge. The ferry was still rocking, and it was now completely black outside. Seeing my reflection in the large window at the front of the ferry made me laugh. I was as large as a whale. The pain was coming in a wave across my belly. Mistakenly, I thought the pressure was just the need to pee again. I trundled across the floor, grabbing the seat tops to steady myself. The washroom felt like it was miles away. I needed extra time to get down the stairs to the car deck. Once I had squeezed myself out of the washroom again, I felt better being on the move. The baby wasn't due for another 3 weeks, and I was sure she was going to be late. As long as I didn't get any larger, I'd be fine. On the trip home, I'd have Lenny with me to do the driving. "Let me hold the door for you." The young man in the car behind me had reappeared. The wind was pushing my car door into the truck parked beside me. "Thank you." I dropped onto my seat. Now I had to somehow get the seatbelt done up. The man's hair was completely soaked to his head. He smiled. "Bit of a storm, eh?" I closed my eyes and blew out a long breath. "Are you okay?" I nodded. "Just tired. I'm fine." I smiled at the young man and gave him a thumbs up. He closed my car door and ran back to his own vehicle. There was a payphone in the arrivals parking lot inside a small shelter. I was grateful it wasn't a telephone booth. I didn't feel like squeezing into any more small spaces. I dropped a quarter in and dialed Lenny's number. "I'm here." "Damn it, Maggie, I told you not to come," said Lenny. "Well, I'm here. You were supposed to meet me." "The road is flooded. I can't get out. I'm surprised the phone still works." "I'm going to head towards Potts Beach. Maybe I can spend the night at my mom's place. Do you think the road will be open by morning?" "You shouldn't be driving in this weather." "Did you tell your family that you're moving in with me?" The line went dead. I wiped rain and tears from my face and got back in the driver's seat. The wind blew my car towards the center line of the highway. I couldn't see the road, even when I set my wipers on their fastest speed. Trying to stay calm, I pulled the seatbelt away from my stomach. Everything was tight inside my belly. It was going to be a long night staying with my mother. We hadn't talked since I'd announced my pregnancy. My mom wasn't happy that I'd gotten myself in the family way and had not settled down with the man who had done this to me. The seasickness had passed, but the pain in my back and belly was getting worse. I hated to admit that Lenny was right. I shouldn't have come over in this weather. If Lenny hadn't kept putting off her move date, I wouldn't have had to. Lenny was supposed to be settled into the new apartment already. I let out another long breath, remembering that the crib was still in the box, waiting for Lenny to put it together. The seatbelt was cutting into my pelvis. There was so much pressure. A large pain shot through my back. I pulled off the highway. No, baby, this is not the right time. I began panting and I wanted to shift my position. It's too early. It's too early. I let out a scream. No, no, no. I was panting again. No, baby. I needed to move, to shift the weight of the baby away from the pain in my back. I threw the door open and tried to stand up. The wind blew the door back at me. Again, I opened the door and I pushed myself out of the driver's seat. The next thing I knew, I was on the back seat with my legs propped up. I screamed again. Putting a hand between my legs, I felt the baby's head move her way into the world. The back seat filled with light. A couple who had traveled on the ferry had seen my car stop, and they pulled their car in behind mine. When they heard our screams, they ran from their vehicle to help. "You have a daughter," I said to Lenny. I was too tired to raise my hand. I wanted to hold Lenny's long fingers, to feel her skin against mine. The baby was in the room next door getting checked over by a doctor. "We have a daughter, Lenny. She's as much yours as she is mine." "My family is here." I knew what she meant. We hadn't been able to tell our plans to anyone yet, and introducing the baby as Lenny's daughter before we even explained about us would upset her family. "My dad and brothers and uncle are in the truck. They're probably freezing out there in the rain. I can't stay long." When I told them I was heading to the hospital to see you, they made it very clear that there was no reason to go by myself and get stuck. 4 men could move anything that got in the way. "Don't leave until you see her." Lenny gave me a quick kiss on the cheek and then sat down in the chair by the door. She didn't move closer. She wasn't ready. I wasn't ready for motherhood either. A nurse brought in a bundled baby, swaddled in pink. I watched the bewildered look in Lenny's eyes wash away with tears of joy. "She's so tiny." The nurse smiled at Lenny and knew to place our girl in her arms. "Have you thought of a name for her?" the nurse asked me. "Not yet," I laughed. "I thought I had another month to find the right one." Lenny studied the baby. She touched the baby's cheek tenderly and peeked at the hairline of soft down framing our daughter's little face. I watched as Lenny kissed the baby's forehead. There seemed to be a silent conversation passing between my lover and my daughter. Their eyes focused on each other, seemingly. Lenny let one single tear fall, but she quickly wiped it away. I don't think she wanted the nurse to see her struggle. The couple who had brought me to the hospital had kindly brought my suitcase and my purse, but they had continued on home once I was safely delivered to the ER. At least I knew where to find my car. It couldn't be more than 5 minutes from the ferry terminal. Lenny had to return home with the men. They weren't able to get to my car until the rain stopped. They wouldn't be able to get to my car until the rain stopped. I couldn't ask her to talk to my family about the baby on her own. How were we going to leave the island in the middle of this storm? "This is our moment of truth," Lenny said, looking directly at me. I knew we could be a family. Nothing would stop us from raising this baby as our own. "Verity, that's what you want to call her?" I asked. I couldn't believe this child was in my hands. I dreamed about this moment since Maggie had surprised me with the news that she was pregnant. It was hard sharing her with Carl, harder than I expected it to be. He wanted to help us create our family. Very few people knew about me and Maggie. The Supreme Court of Canada might have just ruled that we had the same rights as straight couples, but at home, my family didn't talk about sexual orientation. Carl agreed that he wouldn't be anything but the biological father. He planned to stay out of the baby's life. Maggie and I would raise the child. Carl agreed to help because he knew us both, knew we loved each other. The intimate act Maggie had shared with Carl left me doubting Maggie would share motherhood with me. That didn't make any sense now as I held our baby. Maggie had come here for me. She'd come to Circle Island to talk with my parents, to explain to them that I was leaving with her, that she loved me. I spoke then, looking up from that perfect little face into Maggie's flushed and dewy skin. She had done all of this for me. This is our moment of truth. I could hear the rain pelting against the windows. I didn't have enough time. My dad had made it very clear on the drive over. I could have 15 minutes with my friend. I was to see her baby and then leave. To become a mother in this moment, to face my family and have them understand who I was, I knew there wasn't time for me to change. Even facing this beautiful little girl in my arms, I knew I couldn't be her mother. I was 27 years old and still my father's daughter. He would be ashamed of me. He would hate Maggie for being the person I had fallen in love with. I took a deep breath and spoke clearly so Maggie could hear me. Verity. This was the most I could give Maggie and the baby, the closest I could come to being a parent. Maggie asked me, "That's what you want to call her?" Could I hide my feelings for Maggie, for the baby? Time was up. I'd figure out a way to be a part of Verity's life, to be a part of her family. Maggie and I would build a home together, just like we'd always planned to do. I have to go. Holding back a flood of tears, I lifted the baby up for the nurse. I'll be back in the morning. This time I was alone. No man to decide how long I could stay. The storm had passed. As soon as the light of day began, my father and uncle joined others to clear the road around the lake. Another large giant had fallen and shattered. The men had their chainsaws ready and would fill their truck beds with cords of wood once it was cut up. The power line would be repaired later. First, the debris from the Douglas fir had to be removed. Driving around the fallen power line was a challenge. The men directed me to drive onto the soft shoulder that sloped down into the ditch. I took that section of the road slowly. Once I got the wave that I was clear of the line, I pulled back onto the pavement and turned on the radio. There was no one else out driving so soon after the rain, and I wanted the silence filled with music. I bopped my head along with the song, "Steal My Sunshine." I hadn't slept well. Every time lightning struck, the thunder that followed shook my bedroom window. At the lake, the storms were always intense. The area where my family had lived for generations was known as Thunder Lake because of how sound echoed through the hills. When I arrived, Maggie was trying to breastfeed. A nurse stood beside her, helping her latch the baby to her nipple. Verity cried. I heard Maggie say, "This is much harder than it looks." "Relax. The baby wants to suckle." The nurse positioned the baby up higher in Maggie's arms. "Lenny!" She held her breast out to the baby, but her eyes were focused on me. The nurse moved everything into place, then stepped back and smiled at me. "You're back. Both baby and mother have had a good night." Maggie looked fresh, ready for motherhood. I didn't want to share my decision with her yet. "Isn't she beautiful? Look, her hair is dark, like yours." I noticed that the baby's head, covered with hair, had a bit of curl to it, like Carl's. "I don't want to go home." Maggie's stare was intense. "Not without you." "The keys for my car are in the closet. There." After directing me with her eyes, she focused again on Verity. "Could you and your dad go pick it up? I guess it can be parked at my mom's house for now, unless you want to take it home with you." Even the thought of having her car near me made speaking difficult. "That was quick. Do you think she's supposed to stop so soon?" Maggie was going to be a great mom. I understood this about her. She wasn't going to repeat the mistakes her mother had made. "I'm sorry you have to stay with Rose. When will you get released?" "The doctor will be checking me over this morning during rounds. It's up to him. He said for a backseat berth, I was lucky to have the help I did. I hope that couple left their contact information in the car. I didn't see anything in my purse or suitcase. I don't even remember what they look like." I pulled the chair over to the bed and lay my hand beside Maggie's. I was afraid of anyone seeing me touch her. For all anyone knew, though, Maggie could be my sister. I told her, I haven't said anything yet to my family about moving. Well, that's good. I should be there when you tell them. Maggie covered herself as the baby pulled away and fell asleep. You shouldn't do anything but look after yourself and this little one. The baby's head of hair was soft. She was quite warm. I lightly touched her arm and then searched for her tiny hand. In a few days we can talk to your family, said Maggie. Once they see this little one, they'll understand. I had to say it. My father would never see this child as his own. I've changed my mind. Was I protecting myself? Protecting Maggie and Verity? I wanted to fade away into the background, like the trees do when the mist forms over the lake at dawn. I didn't want to be a mother. I loved Maggie and Verity, but that wasn't enough. This child needed a mother. She needed Maggie, not me. Thank you.
Wow. There's a lot going on there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I'm glad it still worked, because in the parking lot I was quickly editing things out because I realized it was too long a passage, so I still wanted to be able to.
Really good. I want more.
Yeah.
I want a series,
That's
not
good.
just the novel.
Where does this scene fit into this particular part of the series? Like, is it the beginning of the book? That's how it starts.
An introduction to Circle Island and to two characters that their story will be told in another book.
Okay.
Did you send it to Moose's house yet?
I love your enthusiasm. Not yet. I pitched, during Pitch the Publisher, I pitched the first book, which was Below the Flame, and this one is just like a novella that I've called The Journey. So there's different characters.
Send it. I'll check back with you really soon.
Thank you.
I really like how with Lenny in the beginning, there was a long stretch before you named the first pronoun.
Yes.
And I really
And
like
Lenny
that.
can
Where I
be
thought,
both.
oh, nice. Awesome. Oh. I like that.
Good. That was purposeful. I wanted
Yeah.
everyone to understand it was about the love and the relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yay.
Very good.
My name is Dawn Peters, and I'm with the Pictou County Writers, and I'm just never done this before, and I'm just looking forward to pushing myself out of my comfort zone. So here we go. I'm going to share a very brief beginning of a story, and then I'm going to read some poetry. So, and they're all different. So here we go. Clinically speaking, some might say that Lexi Davis was pathological and perhaps undoubtedly dangerous. But she was also highly intelligent enough to be able to do what she had to do without ever seeming to have a sniff of paranoia about being taken to task for these things. It was impossible to conduct herself differently, even if she had a hint of remorse, to which she did not. She pulled into the dimly lit driveway that was hidden by unkept hedges. She turned the engine of her reliable Toyota Tercel, and the engine thanked her. She sighed and sat there quietly for a moment. The crickets protested loudly, and the autumn air announced that summer was over in crisp acceptance. She opened the door and stepped out, not knowing how many women may be inside or what damage was done to them. Her shift began with a changing of the guard report. The background noise beyond the closed door would often give hints to its occupancy. And if there were any personalities dancing, all types were welcome, but it was the quiet type with darting eyes, avoidant, the ones that wrap themselves tightly in oversized sweaters, hoping to drown the trauma, hide the sins, hoping to just disappear, a safety behavior they may not yet be aware of. Lexi's shifts were sporadic, and she often had to decline work at the transition house as she was a shift-working 20-year veteran at the emergency room of St. Anne's Hospital. Both jobs required giving of oneself, but she enjoyed both. The work at Jasmine Ridge was the most rewarding to her. She would often sit up with women who would share their patched experiences from behind the dull glow of a cigarette. Their trauma was contained within the vessels of their bodies, often masquerading as substance abuse or parading itself with different faces of chronic pain. It was different from the trauma she faced as an ER nurse, but satisfying in a healing sort of way, especially for the women. She wasn't a lover of children, though, and found the screechy sounds, darting energy, and defiant bratty behavior to be unnerving. They would gravitate to her, though, intrigued by her aloofness and lack of interest in them. She knew Carol would still be in there, and she looked forward to it. She knew that her bastard of a loser husband would meet his demise in an untimely way. She had already been studying him out at the farm. She had already placed surveillance throughout the property to learn his behavior patterns.
Very dramatic spot to
Uh,
leave
And that's Lexi Davis. Oh dear.
We will hear more from her at some point.
I hope so.
Someday?
I hope so. She's very cathartic. Okay. The next one I'd like to read is a poem that I wrote on the 20th anniversary of Westray, and I've since changed it for the 25th anniversary. I had to do it as an assignment for a communication course I was doing, but it's something that I think anybody from Pictou County has been deeply affected by, and so it was the mine explosion that killed 26 miners on May 9th, and so here it is. It was completely preventable deaths. It's called Yesterday at Westray. Into the deep they trudged along. To feed their families, they must be strong. A decent wage is all they desired, a place to work until they retired. Retired they did in a tragic way on that cold and unforgettable day. They knew and were told the mine was unsafe, but profit trumped. There was no good faith. Many hearts did break that sad, empty day. The pain for many will always stay. Fatherless children will wonder why they have only photos on which to rely. Did they know what was happening before it blew? Was there fear in their hearts because they knew? Was there time to pray or try to escape when Curragh Industries their lives did rape? The agony still hurts the heart. 26 lives for change to start. It's been 25 years of healing, they say. Why does it still seem like yesterday? And I will also read, since we're on this dreary topic of grief, loss, I'm going to read a poem that I wrote. It's about grief, actually, and it's called The Uninvited Guest. Did I read that one? Okay, maybe I should read something different then. Okay, The Uninvited Guest. One thing I know for sure in my life, pain is the catalyst for many things. In my life, grief enveloped me to writhe and scream, angry and hopeless, feeling minute and insignificant as though nothing matters. One thing I know from sorrow and pain, Resilience is the core of my being. Pain is the intruder, puddling me into an insular fetal heap. After a while, there is a stirring. I resist. The crack opens wider until the sun warms my soul. Through the depth of the earthen soil, that is my sadness. Pleading to stay here, underneath, in the gloom, hidden. It presses through. With new sight and new knowing, let me stay in the warm earth. Instead, I put my hands flat on the ground, push myself onto my knees. Maybe it will be okay. How long have I been under? I sit there, watching, accepting, knowing that I have to get up. I am different now, broken like a boxed jigsaw, alone in the dark, painstaking puzzling, piece by piece. Why so many pieces? Why are they so small? It's too hard. A voice whispers to keep going. I place one foot solidly in the mud. I know I am almost ready to stand unassisted. I reach upward. The growth is inevitable, with all its branches. Welcome back. It's been a while. My heart weeps. The more I age and experience, the less I come to know grief as a stranger. Sorrow is an uninvited guest. It is in these meetings I have found strength I never knew. I know I will return to the soil and the darkness again. To love is to hurt. I accept this. It is okay. I am okay. I bury my wounds in the soil. Nurture, nourish in solitude as needed. Take my hand. Let's walk a while. Love is eternal.
You have some nice, very strong verbs there, Dawn.
Thank you.
Puddling, stirring,
Yeah.
push myself onto my knees, and the burying in the ground.
Mm-hmm.
You may want to see if there's ways that you can incorporate a few more of those
Mhm.
types of really strong verbs in there, because they
Yeah.
really help you to feel
Yeah. Yeah.
what the person is experiencing.
Yeah. And I find grief is like it's kind of like it's not a depression, but it feels the same, feels like depression, but it's like sitting in the mud and you just don't even want to move out of it. But I was kind of going for like something growing in the soil and rebirth, right? And because we're always changing and growing and becoming different people based on our life experiences. So yeah.
I love the jigsaw piece, and I'm like, she didn't say jigsaw puzzle, and then you put the puzzling in after, it would
Yes.
work beautifully.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks.
And you're strong to be able to read these out loud in this scenario.
Thank you.
I admire that.
Thank you. I don't know. Am I out of time? I have no concept.
Chapter 2.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
Are we good, Lana?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll stop
Yeah.
there. Perfect. Thank you. Awesome.
My name's Lana McCachran, and I'm a library technician and a former journalist and columnist, and I think I started writing when I was about 10. This is probably one of the first times I've read work to an audience since maybe junior high, the exception of maybe one writing workshop. So I have 2 poems that I'd like to share today. When my son was in high school, he was involved in track and field. So we spent a lot of time at the Pioneer Coal track and field facility in Stellarton. And before he had his license, I would have to drive him to practices. So while they were doing their thing, I would walk on there's a dirt road that runs along the top of the berm around the perimeter of the facility. That's great for walking. And at one end of that path, there's a very rudimentary service road that goes up a very steep hill to the town's water tower. And one day I decided that I was going to go up that path. And this poem is called Road to the Water Tower. Dusty dirt road snakes up and up and up. Pitted, pockmarked service path, corrugated with tire trenches, a crooked finger beckoning. Shoulders roll back and settle. Arms swing like a metronome. Feet stride confidently on hard-packed ground without hesitation. Stride, 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 stride. Left, right, left, right. Back straight, eyes down, patrolling for sudden dips or loose pebbles. Wind lifts your cotton tank top and ripples it like waves across a pond. Chest rises and falls with steady breaths. In, out. In, out. At what looks like a third of the way, but is only a sixth, the ground tilts, misleadingly gentle, sly, deceptive illusion. Strides slacken and lengthen, become more deliberate. Knees assume a slight angle as legs engage in a 4-part motion. Reach, plant, push back, lift. Reach, plant, push back, lift. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. Eyes risk a glance upward. Don't look yet, brain interjects. The worst is looming, taunting, mocking. Eyes drop. Look at the fawn-colored powder. Look at the gray, brown, blue sandstone piled in layers in the tire ruts. Look anywhere inconsequential and just climb. At the point where the ground suddenly angles alarmingly sharply, the wind snuffs out. A dead zone. Air hangs hot and heavy, a sauna-infused wool blanket. Eyes pan up at the almost vertical trough of intimidation. Can it actually be vertical? Must be more illusion. Torso leans forward. Hips sink into seat. Seat sinks into an invisible chair. Thighs bend into knees, bend into calves. Body compresses like an accordion, bearing down as legs attack the slope like the rungs of a ladder. Grasp and pull. Grasp and pull. Thighs tingle. Calves tighten. Air hits back of windpipe with a smack. Burning lungs propel air out with a whoosh. Gulp, release, gulp, release, gulp, release. Thighs tighten. Calves burn. A thin trickle of wet ribbons down your back to disappear under the elastic waistband of cotton shorts. Hands drop to thighs. Dig, 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 dig. Gulp, release, gulp, release, gulp, release. Thighs scream. Calves turn to stone. One more. Cement. Step. The incline softens, ceding a partial victory. Wind lifts the edge of your top and kisses the salty stream of your back. Body straightens, legs unfold, breath deepens. In, thump, 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 thump. Out, thump, 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 thump. Arms resume a determined, if less jaunty, swing. Invisible marionette strings pull legs upward. Not far now. Just above, from a ridge of slate gray gravel, yellow butter and egg flowers wave encouragement. Tall Timothy sways in greeting. 3 steps, 2 steps, 1, the summit. Inhale, air rushes down a deep chasm to fill the lungs. Exhale, air releases steadily like an open balloon, fingers and thumbs holding the neck secure. You scan the 360-degree view. Great mountains of peaty brown and dusky black look like dustpan offerings. Haze hangs over distant hills bedecked with spindly wind turbines, some rotating lazily, some at rest. 1, 2, 3, 4, 13, 14, too many to count. Treetops between you and the horizon, a plush green carpet. Roofs and chimneys peeping through like Easter eggs lying in wait. A final look, then pivot and begin descent. Slow steps, not tentative, but necessarily deliberate and committed. Alert for the first vibration of sliding rock. Feet brace firmly against the path unfurling before you like a kamikaze water slide. Steady, 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 slow, slow, slow. Toes cramp against fabric and rubber, feet curl. Knees strain with resistance against the magnetism of gravity pulling them downward, against the weight pushing from behind. Careful, careful. As vertical once again becomes horizontal, muscles relax. Arms swing, stride, 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 stride. Left, right, left, right. Toes spread and sigh.
I've walked that path.
You've walked that path? You get it?
Where you are,
That's awesome. And the second one that I want to share is, I guess, my first attempt at a spoken word type of poem. That's a medium that interests me a lot, probably partly because I have a bit of a drama background from way back. And this poem is called Negata Perpetuum, which in Latin means forever denied. Another Sunday. I sit on the same varnished wooden pew, front row, as I always do, awaiting this week's meal for my soul. Reach for the bulletin, flatten it out, and on the top of page 2, it shouts, "We are in crisis." The priests are old and weary and few, and clearly we cannot go on like this. Churches will close, the flock scatter like lost sheep without a pasture unless you, dear faithful, answer the call of the Master and become deacons, assistant shepherds to save the day. And by the way, women need not apply. Bile rises in my throat from this slap in the face, handprint not yet erased when a white-haired man in vestments stands and says, "We are all God's children." Now stop. Just a minute. Rewind that statement and analyze what's in it. How can you preach that we are all equal in God's eyes when clearly the XYs are more equal? I want to rise
and storm down the aisle, turn my back on this tired old man, but it's not his fault. He is just following the plan of some greater man who knows what we need. And now the Pope says he has heard our pleas for equality and will make the changes necessary in this bastion of male supremacy and allow us to read. Read the word and hand out the sacred bread to feed the soul. And this is his gift to us, allowing us this new role, except we've been doing that for decades, but now it will be official. And that's supposed to sate us. We, the bodies who fill the pews of your sessions, and fill the young minds with catechism lessons, and fill the bellies at fundraising lunches and funeral receptions. We, fully one half of God's human creation, the vessels that bore every one of your fragile beings into existence, humanity's foundation, good enough to carry the body and the blood, to give life to it, but not to consecrate it. You men in Rome, toss your breadcrumbs, calling them manna, in hopes that we will scramble because you know without us your empire would crumble like a Tower of Babel into the sea of irrelevance and apathy. Forgive me if I don't bow low enough to lick up the scraps of patronization. Feel grateful for some token bit of recognition from your organization. Prostrate myself to kiss the Italian leather of your shoes that tread forever on my back, pushing me a little deeper into the carpet of your entitlement. What are you so afraid of? That you might have to relinquish one clap of your thunder? Are you so accustomed to being over and never under that the thought of standing side by side leaves you quaking? Until the only way to stop the shaking is to brace your arms firmly against the doctrine doorframe and close your eyes to the travesty you're making. Or is it just pride? I wonder. If the call comes from God, who are you to say that we are a wrong number? Thank you.
Not to be repetitive, but you nailed it. I've been in the same pew. Wow.
That was really powerful.
That was.
Thank you.
You were very powerful. And your presentation was
Thank you.
When that goes live, you'll get invitations.
Not from the Pope, probably.
from many other good people.
Maybe the Pope is irrelevant.
Loved your choice.
Hey.
Thank you. I actually have a t-shirt that I made. On the front of it, it says #ordain women. On the back, it says, if the call comes from God, how can the church say that we are a wrong number? And I've worn that to church when I've been reading at church.
And the reception was.
Which church do you go to? I want to look.
What church are you starting? Do we want to
No. So, but thank you. That's my first time doing something like that for an audience. So, thank you.
You did very well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Do it more often.
Good. You should. I'm glad
We
you
need
did.
to have events like this more often. It's not something that is common in this part of the province, I don't think, to have open mics. Or is it? Yeah, it's. I think it would be good to.
Normally not during COVID times.
Yes,
When the
yeah.
writers group kind of gets together, this is kind of what we do.
I've been to just. I've only gotten to the one meeting, so
What we do and what we need.
yeah, yeah. Good. Thank you.
How does it make you feel?
How does it make me feel?
The first time doing it since junior high.
Feels good to get it out.
Hi, I'm Tekla Altman. I am a translator and editor by trade, but work different things these days. Mainly so I can write my own things and not get distracted. And I write mostly poetry, but a lot of prose too. A lot of it is very serious and heart-wrenching and very dark. And some of what I'm reading today is the exact opposite, because I was challenged more than once to write, well, I don't know, I've got a bit of romance with sexy overtones. So this is the disclaimer up front. That anybody who does not want to listen to that kind of stuff should skip ahead. Mind you, the first thing I'm reading is a poem. It's very short, no worries, that I wrote, maybe 2 months ago, just when, as I was watching my child having an online class in school. So it's actually called Online Class. Prevent, he says, prevent. I am trying to prevent the dandelions from growing on my lawn. A screen full of little video patches write, prevent. My own child, visibly upset, has their camera turned off, but pushing hard against their own anxiety. Spelling tests are not much fun when you're dyslexic. Duh. Slow, I think. Breathe slow, calm down. I don't say it though. One of nature's dandelions, my child, so thorny in their teacher's eye, persistently establishing themselves right into the roadblocks in all their sunshine yellow glory. Okay, that was just my thought of challenges of online learning, right? So under my challenge, I started writing a romance which was very easy and, or at least a lot faster and lighthearted than what I usually do. And I'm just gonna start because honestly, I have no idea how long this takes. It is set in a small town in Germany. And so there's a few German names and everything. Okay. Chapter 1, Goodbye to Blankenburg. Oh, the whole thing is called Berlin, Berlin, which is a title in progress so far. Bear, that was amazing. Wow, what a performance, your best yet. Her parents looked proud. Berenike beamed, still in stage makeup and slightly sweaty and dusty. Her luscious auburn hair was still piled up in ringlets a la ancient Greece, and the white toga showed off her tanned, smooth skin and her lithe figure. Thanks, Mom and Dad. I really felt the magic tonight, you know. It was great, really, but there's no way I could have done it without everyone else. She looked around for her fellow performers. They were scattered all across the audience, perched on folding chairs or leaning against the wall, talking to their families and friends. Tonight had been the last performance of Lysistrata, which had filled all 80 seats in each house show and had been written about in the Blankenburg News 3 times, once even making the first page. Berenike was elated, tired, and sad. As much as she loved it here, this was her last night as well. She was about to leave for the big city. Her parents exchanged a glance. So we figure you're probably going to party tonight rather than come home with us, right? Her father's eyes crinkled. Yes, I can't see Freddie anywhere. He was supposed to be here and give me a drive. The party is at his house. Another look between her parents, this one less smiley. Freddie had been Berenice's boyfriend since they were 15, but neither of them was looking to commit, really. This upcoming move was severely going to test their relationship. Berenice's dad spotted him near the entrance. There he is. Look, go, have fun, make smart choices. Your mother and I are going home. We love you and we're so proud of you. See you in the morning. He kissed her on the cheek and her mother hugged her. Then they left. Berenice waved at Freddie from afar. He was gorgeous, all right. Tall, blonde, slim, and muscular. He was the very ideal of a good-looking boy around here, and he knew it. He flipped his hair as he waved back at her and smiled, but he kept talking to his friend. Berenice shrugged, then went backstage to take off her makeup and get changed. Sure, he was gorgeous. He was nice enough and smart and funny. His body could make hers feel really good too. But somehow she had felt for some time now that this wasn't going anywhere, and one of the many reasons she was going to the city was this, although she was sure going to deny it if anyone ever asked. Backstage, she wiped her makeup off first. She preferred a natural look and liked how her smooth skin felt with nothing at all on it. Stage lighting had its own demands, though. If you thought you could do without, you looked like a zombie from the audience. Before she removed the toga, she took one last look in the mirror. She liked what this glorified bedsheet had done for her. It had shown off just the right angles on her athletic legs, and her young breasts had swelled perfectly under the fabric. The cheap gold belt was kitsch itself, but on stage it had looked like treasure. She sighed and took it all off for the last time. It had been fun. While she washed, she reflected what this play had done to their little group of friends, her theater buddies. Just like in the play, they had all agreed not to sleep with their boyfriends for the duration. Of course, in the play it had been a matter of war or peace. Berenice, as Lysistrata, had proposed that they could prevent their husbands from waging war by simply not having sex with them. And at the end of the play, they agreed. Happy end. In real life, it had been a challenge too. Oh yes. Freddie, for one, had not been happy. Well, none of them had been. They were young after all. Well, they were going to have fun tonight. Smiling to herself, she put her nicest lacy bra and panties on and a light summer dress over it. Platform sandals completed the look. Her curls bounced around her shoulders, freed from all the pins. When she finally emerged fresh and clean, Freddie greeted her with a big smile. Hey there, future movie princess. Are you going to grace us with your glorious presence at our humble celebration tonight, or what? She grinned. Well, my parents took off already and I don't want to walk, so I guess sure, maybe? He interrupted her with a big kiss on the mouth. Hey, she pushed him back. I was still talking. Don't interrupt me. Yeah. Wanna go? Well, yes. He grinned at her again and took her hand. Come on, baby. I don't want to arrive last to my own house. All right, I'm going to skip ahead here because this is taking a lot longer than I thought. Towards the end of the party. All right. This abstinence business was going to end tonight. She was determined. What had she been thinking? Her body told her very clearly that she wasn't making the right decisions. He eyed her right back whenever she caught his glance, his stance full of promise. Finally, the last stragglers left. Berenice looked at the mess with not much enthusiasm and half-heartedly picked up a few empty dishes. Freddie closed the door behind the last guests and came over. Leave that, he breathed in her ear. That will keep until tomorrow. She leaned into him, feeling his muscled chest warm and close and familiar. Nestling against him, she ran her hands over his body, then slipped them under his shirt, running her fingers across his smooth tan skin. Standing on tiptoes, she tilted her head back to kiss him. His arms were tight around her, and he kissed her hard, his desire palpable. So this time off is finally over then, just before you leave? Berenica sighed, but said nothing. Instead, she pulled at his shirt. He lifted his arms up to help, and she took it off and dropped it on the floor. She kissed him again, harder. He groaned a little with pleasure. His hands wandered up and down her back, found her butt, and squeezed a little. Tangled like that, they stumbled into the wall. You smell so good. It's been too long, he mumbled into her ear. Berenica was breathing too heavily to answer. She pulled at him, closer, closer, running her hands all over his torso. She fumbled with his belt buckle as he pulled up her dress. Her back crushed into the wall, and his hands found her panties hot and in the way. He pulled at them, not accomplishing anything. Berenica giggled despite herself. Come on, Freddie, they're supposed to go down. Maybe I'm going down? With one movement, he crouched down and pulled her panties to her ankles. Oh. She sighed deeply when, without a moment's pause, his tongue darted between her legs. She was so hot and wet already, and her knees buckled, and she would have fallen had it not been for the wall behind her and his strong hands holding her thighs. Freddie. Not now, sweetie, he mumbled between her legs. Her hands tangled in his hair. A deep groan escaped her. I'm gonna fall over. Oh, okay. Again, without pausing, he rose and picked her up in one movement, her legs wrapped around his waist. He carried her through the remnants of the party to his bed and put her down on it, none too gently. He was about to move on top of her when she stopped him. Take those pants off before you get in here. Take everything off. He grinned down at her. I know, this isn't an obstacle course. He complied, almost falling over himself as he tried to wriggle out of his jeans as fast as he could. It didn't take a minute until he stood before her in all his naked glory. Sorry, this is so unlike anything that I normally write. Never mind. Oh God, he's gorgeous, she thought. My boy toy. Sweat glistened on his muscled upper body, and his blonde hair shone almost gold in the lamplight. Her eyes were drawn to his penis, hard and eager, but she didn't get much opportunity to admire his physique, for he was already coming to join her. I've missed you this much. No, I've missed this so much, he said, wrapping himself around her. I've missed you. You've been so busy, and now you're leaving. Shh. Berenica pushed him on his back and straddled him. No more talking. We have better things to do. With that, she pulled the dress over her head and threw it halfway across the room. Now she was naked too. Her firm breasts hung over him, nipples hard. He leaned up to kiss one, and an urgent sound escaped her. Her hips ground against his, hot and sticky with sweat. You want this? He asked, breathing heavily. Oh, yes, I do. Oh, good, because I don't want to wait another minute. Berenica grinned. Pushing her hips up, she gave him just enough space for his penis, then slid herself down on him. She was so wet. Oh, yes. She ground on him, rocking steadily back and forth, his rock-hard rod deep inside her. His eyes were half closed with pleasure, his hands half attempting to guide her hips and backing up to get deeper, deeper. I want you. I've missed you. I don't want you to go, he kept mumbling. Shh. She felt the pleasure building inside her, tension rising hot and wet, and yes, she wanted him too, more and closer and deeper and bliss forever. Come on top of me, she said, leaning backwards until she was on her back, his body neatly following hers until his weight was on hers. He pushed her deeper into the mattress with an urgent kiss, his hips now moving into a rhythm. "Oh my God," she breathed. "Oh my God, oh yes." He fucked her steadily, deep and wet, and she felt the orgasm become inevitable, rising and rising, and then he squeezed one of her nipples between his fingertips and she spasmed under him, not breathing at all. This pushed him to the edge too, and he came, filling her with heat that felt like utter heaven. They breathed hard for a little while, feeling each other's heartbeats, limbs still tangled together. There was a lot of love between them, and they both knew it. It was Berenica who broke the silence. "I'm sorry I'm leaving." Freddie said nothing, just snuggled closer against her. "I feel like I have to. I have to go out in the world and explore, and I can't be a big actress in Blankenburg. And as much as I love it and you and everything here, I still have to go." "I know that, Bear," he said. "I know you have to go and do this. Doesn't mean I have to like it. You're gonna go and have a new life and new friends and boyfriends and experiences I'm not part of, and we're gonna grow apart. So I'm sad, I'm not gonna lie. But what we've had here, us two together, I wouldn't want to give this up for the world. We've been a pretty awesome match here, haven't we?" She smiled, a little teary-eyed. "We have, yes. We've been freaking amazing. Anyway, yes, and I feel lucky for what we've shared. But Bear, I'm not gonna hold you back, you know. I don't want you to go to the big city and hold back on anything you'd want to do because you've got a boyfriend back home." Her heart stopped. Where was this going? "So we're breaking up. What we've had has always been mostly between our bodies, glorious fit as they are. But we can't stay together if you're in Berlin." Berenica was lost for words. She propped herself up on an elbow and looked into his eyes. "You're really serious?" she asked. "Yes, I am. Don't talk me out of this." "I don't know what to say. It's not like it hasn't crossed my mind, you know. I know. And I kind of love you even more right now. I know, I love you too." "I don't know what to say," she said again. "So say, thank you, I love you, let's fuck," he said. Berenica laughed out loud, tears in her eyes. "Okay," she said. "Thank you, I love you, let's fuck." Okay, that's where I'm stopping for now. The story will continue with a stranger that she meets on the train to Berlin, who is a mysterious tall woman with long black hair, who, yes, as romance stories goes, ends up working right in the industry she wants to get into and lives across the street, and there's all kinds of mysteries. It's a slightly ridiculous plot, but it gives a lot of opportunity for hot, steamy scenes. So yeah, this is a lot of fun that I'm working on right now.
I like
All
it.
right.
I'm confused about how old she is.
Old enough to have finished school and move out.
Okay.
So I don't know, I'm picturing maybe 19, 20, 21-ish.
If they were together for 5 years,
Mhm.
would they really split up just moving that easily? Maybe.
For the sake of this story,
Yeah.
sure.
Okay.
I don't know.
And then the other thing was, you said she was completely naked when she took off her dress. I realized her panties were off, but she talked about having a bra on. So that needs to come off.
Oh,
With the
yeah.
dress, or before the dress, or I don't know.
First draft,
Yeah,
thanks.
I agree. That's why I'm, yeah. Trust me, I've been through it, but yeah, I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Good, I'm
But
gonna catch
overall,
that.
You think it's a natural fit for you, I think.
Yeah.
Unusual. But you're having a lot of fun. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Fun, eh?
Yeah, I mean, normally when I'm writing the heavy, dark things, and I'm always writing, you know, I stay in that mood. And this is like type. This is a whole new experience. I didn't know writing could be like this. It's kind of nice.
Do you normally read romance fiction?
No.
Have you been reading romance fiction as inspiration, or do you think you know?
No, I dare say I can count on one hand the romance books I've leafed through. More like, and one of them was to rip it apart to make a craft out of it. So no, I am not normally a romance reader at all. But from the very small sample that I took, I quickly discovered that they're kind of all the same. And
But yours won't be because you don't read those.
maybe.
Sure, you won't be
I think.
influenced by
I won't be.
the typical examples of the genre.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I also did was I looked at the Harlequin website where you can submit things and they actually pay you for these kind of things. And they actually have outlines for each category they have, and it is almost like this is the plot we already
very
set out for you,
formulaic.
fill in the blanks.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to write something where you don't really think too deeply or don't get too engaged. I mean, sure, you get into the scene and the characters, but you know, you don't pour all your heart blood in it. It's really relaxing. So yeah, I'm enjoying this. I might just keep at these kind of things as a side hobby.
When you were describing her costume from the play, there was a really great visual there when you were talking about the belt, that kitschy belt, but how it had looked like treasure on stage.
Yeah.
And that just popped for me, that image. So if you can find ways of inserting little bits of color like that in other places as well, I think that works really well.
Yeah. Yeah, I see these things in my head, but whether they actually make it on the page in the first draft, that's not a given yet. So
That one did, and the up
Yeah.
against the wall, I think, did as well.
yes, I actually had to stand up and move through what they're doing and where they're going so I could keep track. Yes. Wow. Yeah, really. Stuff I do alone at home. So nobody watches me. Oh, yeah. All right.
Well done. Who's next?
Well, thank you for listening. This was fun.
I just simply want to say thank you all for coming and baring your souls with us and the YouTube watchers of the virtual Read by the Sea 21st year. Yes. Yeah, 21st year of Read by the Sea, this time virtually because of, circumstances. Thank you all for coming. Have a great day.